Andy, Andy Hagan.
Yeah.
He has been leading worship the last couple weeks for us, and we're going to get to know him today. One of the things is let's just talk about your backstory. Now, how did you? Let's start with music first. Now, how did you get involved in music?
Music has been a part of my life since I was a child. My mom was a very musically talented lady, played piano, played some guitar, sang. There were always music in my home growing up. My dad had friends, and they were musicians, and they had a lot of get-togethers, and there was always music. I can remember even as a child, trying to imitate those people. And there's a picture of me when I was like 2 years old, sitting on my dad's tractor, and I had a guitar in my hand. So music seemed to always be around. I've got recordings of me as a kid, singing songs and such. And then when I got into church, as my family got into church, I got a little older, and I just knew that music was a place that I felt peace and comfort. So I sang in the choir as a teenager, and then just developed from there.
So, when you're talking about your family now, did they play just around the house, or were they musicians, or how did the?
No, it was just more along playing around the house. My mom played, my grandmother played. So
you just kind of fell.
Yeah, just kind of fell in. Yeah.
It was just one of those things. Did you like sports and stuff, or was it just how
No.
some people are into music, some are into sports. Were you?
No, I played sports. I played all three sports growing up: football, basketball, and football. So love sports. Probably though, toward the time I got about 17, 18, my passion for music exceeded the sports. And my senior year in high school, I didn't play any sports, and I was all in music. I was playing in a band at that time, and so yeah, the music kind of took over at that point.
Let me ask you. So, for me, for example, whatever, I love music too.
Yeah.
I listen to, from jazz to rock to you name it. And I've always wanted to play an instrument, but I can play like one or two notes. Now, how do you get over that hump to be an actual musician versus just having a guitar sitting on your wall?
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of people that want to play, but it takes the time. You have to put the time in. I think you could talk to anybody that plays any instrument, and when they started playing, it was just they were so passionate about it that they played every day for hours and hours. And that was me. I'd started playing guitar when I was about 15 years old. Played for a while and kind of picked it up, but wasn't great. And then I broke my arm when I was about 17, and I didn't pick a guitar up for several years. And then I decided, hey, I really want to get back to playing guitar. And I made a commitment for a year to pick that guitar up every single day. And if it wasn't but for 5 minutes, but to run through my chords, run through some scales. And within a year, I was really back comfortable, and that's when I really, with Builders None, we kind of kicked off, and I really started playing guitar and singing in the band, because prior to that, I was just singing and not playing an instrument.
Okay, so how did Builders None form, I guess you would say? How did that incorporate?
Well,
now, were you in bands before then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have been in a band since I was 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was in my first band when I was 15 years old, and I can't remember maybe just a couple of months at a time in the last 30 years that I have not been in a band. Of course, Builders None, we're working on 19 years this year being together.
Oh, wow, y'all been together?
Yeah, so I was in 2 bands prior to that. Then I've led worship at church for the last 25 years as well. So church bands, I've been doing that. But the guys with Builders None, Jason, Daryl, we actually were in a band together when we were 18, 19, 20 years old. Yeah, it wasn't Christian music.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were playing clubs and frat parties and things such as that. And anyway, those guys, we played together for several years. Met those guys in a parking lot, man. A friend of mine and we were sitting in a parking lot with guitars, just playing on the hood of a car, and Daryl and Jason come pulling up, and Daryl's big jacked up Blazer with radio wide open, and they're like, hey, we're going to show those guys how to play, and they get like, hey, you guys are actually pretty good. So they're like, you want to come to our house and jam with us? And anyway, that started that. So through that, Knew Jason and Daryl, been good friends with them for 30 some odd years now. And through that, we all come to Christ along the way and developed Builders none later on.
So, when you're playing in the clubs, when you're back in that day, versus playing in a church now or, concerts on the lawn and things of that nature, what's the feeling? How does it change from the time you were in the club playing versus now? Like when you're playing those secular songs, and then the feeling you have now playing the worship songs.
Yeah, the difference in it is when you're in the clubs and you're doing that, it's all about self. It's about self-absorption. It's all about people admiring me. They're looking up, they're yelling, they're admiring me. But when you're in the church and you're doing it for God, there's a difference there, because now it's no longer about me, but it's about God and about the people that receive it. You know what I'm saying? Because now I don't find the joy in people going, oh, you're so good, you're so good. I find joy in seeing people's lives touched through worship. Because there's so many people that have never really, truly experienced real worship. And when you see somebody get it for the first time, you see that emotion in them. And that's what blesses me. And that's the difference. It's about glorifying God in it instead of it glorifying me.
Now, let's bring this into a spiritual thing now. Now, you said your band, when y'all got together, y'all all kind of made the walk with Christ. Who was the first?
It was me. See, I grew up in church. I received Christ when I was 13 years old. Of course, prior to that, man, when I was 7, 8 years old, I was that kid. I'd go down the altar, get saved every other week in kids' church.
Oh, yeah.
But at 13 years old, I was in my room, and I can really remember the Lord dealing with me and me actually calling out and asking Him to save me. So at 13 years old, I had a relationship with Christ. And all through my early years of high school and stuff, man, I served the Lord. I was a leader in my youth group. I led a Bible study in my high school. And still, at 15 years old, I was in a Christian rock band. And the very thing, though, that God blessed me with, I allowed that to carry me away for a period of time, because I had some buddies at school that I knew, and they played in a secular band. And I kind of admired them. They were good musicians and such. And I got invited to come to a party to watch them play one night. So I started chasing them around, going to parties, watching them, knowing that wasn't where I needed to be. And through time, that pulled me away from God. And that's what drew me away probably in my senior year of high school. Got playing secular music, doing parties, doing the drinking, smoking a little weed here and there. Completely away from God. But it was me. So once I was with my guys in the secular band, we did that for a couple of years, and I really felt a lot of pressure from my family, my mom, and also I knew what I was doing was wrong, and the condemnation kind of got me. And I went to a church service one night and rededicated my life, and through that, I told the guys, I'm like, hey, I can't do this anymore, guys. And of course, man, they were like heartbroken.
Oh, yeah.
And they kept playing. Did
any of them get mad at you? Like,
oh yeah.
I went through that too.
Yeah, we had some hardship among us for a while.
Right.
But the thing about it, time heals things. And later on, those guys ended up and give their life to Christ as well. And through it, it was full circle. God brought us all back together.
Right.
So pretty neat.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you said you were 15 and you were playing in a Christian band?
Yeah.
All right, so this leads to kind of my first question I want to deal with. Can a Christian rock band exist?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What about when somebody says, you can't have that, you got to have it this way? And I'm going to lead into hymnals versus other ones, but we'll get into that. Let's just say Christian rock band, that's possible in your eyes. Yeah,
absolutely. I've done it for years.
Right.
And the thing about it, because it really is not about the style of music or how it's portrayed, it's about Christ. Because, the gift of music is there, and times change, and the style of music changes, and you just kind of go with that. When I was 15 years old, man, I was a big Striper fan. And man, they were out there on the edge, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, they really brought in a new wave. And but it attracted people like me.
Right.
And it drew me in, and it drew me to the Word, and I wanted to be like those guys. And so yeah, absolutely, you can be
What
both.
about what if somebody says to you, well, Andy, you know, you're just a Christian playing in a band.
Yeah.
Is there a difference, or can you justify that and say, well, no, we're not. We're actually serving the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
does that make sense? Or
yeah, because with us, with Builders None, we've called it Builders None Ministries for years. It's more than the band. I tell people all the time, what we do is not about the music. The music is just a tool that gives us the platform. Because when we get on the platform, yeah, we sing, but I tell people about God. We speak about Him. We share testimonies. So it's much deeper than the music. The music's just a tool that gets you on the stage. Without the music, I wouldn't be invited to go play at places. But when I get up there, then I get the opportunity to share, not just to sing, but to share in the Word and get to lead people to Christ. You know.
So let's go into this hymns versus the newer songs. Yeah. That's kind of the rage everywhere. You know, churches are making that jump to that. Yeah. Me personally, I like hymns. I don't know a lot of them, but I mean, I'm not having an issue with it. But I guess when I was a kid and you would open up a hymnal and you would read it, I wouldn't say, I just can't get into that like you can a more song with guitars and drums and this and that, because maybe this is what I'm used to. You know, certain people are used to what they like. But I think at the end of the day, you want to sing songs that you kind of know or you relate to or whatever. So what are your thoughts on? Yeah,
well, I grew up in a little small Southern Baptist church, and we always sang hymns. Mm-hmm. And I've got some of the hymns that, really, if you can sing any hymn now, I can sing along with you just because it was ingrained in me. That's not necessarily my preference of music, but it's something that I still love. I was on the way over here and I was listening to David Crowder, and Because He Lives came on. He did a version of Because He Lives, and I'm like, wow, man, I need to do that one day, Yeah. It was still that good, And I think a lot of times it's how it's presented as well, But yeah, I love all music. Really, rock music is my favorite. I just grew up as a rock guy, but I love all kind of music. I can really get into anything. And then there's something else to be said about music. A lot of people, they're like, oh, I don't like the new music. I want to keep it in the hymns. Well, at one point, the hymns were brand new.
Yeah.
And it was controversial in the church then, you know what I'm saying? Because they had been singing songs probably for 100 some odd years prior to those songs, and then these songs start trying to take over. So, I think people just have to have an open mind and realize that most songs, if you're Christian, they're influenced by the Holy Spirit anyway.
All right, so when we get to hymns, most of the hymns we can agree they have lyrics that are leading towards salvation. Now, a lot of this newer stuff tends to, or the controversy is they're trying to get away. It's like it's more of, and I'm going to read something to you because I want to tell you what you think. A lot of times, this newer stuff is more of, instead of showing God's love, it's I'm in love with God. Does that make sense? Have you noticed that, or you follow me? I want to read one thing to you. This, I ain't going to tell you the song, but I just want to tell you the lyrics or whatever. You probably heard it. But the chorus of the song that plays most of the time is, I love it, I love the way you hold me. And that goes on, and it's repetitive. So if somebody's not saved and doesn't know that this is a Christian song, that would kind of mislead them. You know what I'm saying? Does that... So I guess the point is like, instead of showing somebody the love of Christ, you're kind of, some of these new lyrics are showing the love of being in love with Christ. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the one thing there that it's more about the expression of the person, we live in a time now where, everybody's trying to express themselves somehow, where things are much more accepted than what were 150 years ago, where you can be more expressive with the things you say about hold me. You wouldn't think that so much back then, but I don't have a problem with it. It's each person's story. I'm a songwriter, and I write what's in my heart. I write what is here from God, and I learned a long time ago. I'm not trying to please everyone because you'll just burn yourself out if you're trying to please everyone.
Right.
You have to do what you feel led and what you feel called. And I've really, over the last 10 years, I'm like, what I write is what I feel. And, you know, nothing I write's been controversial, but it's just who I am, and I feel okay about other people. You know, and also we got to understand that people are always at a different place in their walk as well, you know. And I think a lot of times you get a better grasp on things when you get a little more spiritual maturity. You know, a lot of times when you're a young Christian and you're a little zealous and you just jump out there and you'll write anything down and go with it. But, you know, as time goes on, I think as you mature as a Christian, you get a little bit more understanding and maybe you're not as controversial in things, you know. But, you know, I'm okay with it.
Okay. I know one of the things that's getting criticism, I don't know if you've been aware of this, is Lauren Daigle.
Yeah.
Real popular, this and that. She's just writing songs, and a lot of people love them, and she's got millions of fans.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of the hardcore pastors are against what she's saying because they're not. My question would be, to clear this up, do your lyrics have to be Bible-based, leading to Christ, everything? I mean, you know, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, can you just have a nice, clean song? You see what I'm saying?
I think you can. I think you can. See, because you take someone like me. I've been in the church for, 30 plus years, 40 years really now. And sometimes I just get burned out on the same repetitive things, especially a lot of times in modern Christian music. Everybody's trying to do what everybody else is doing. And,
right.
and quite frankly, I get burned out on that a lot.
Yeah.
And I like someone to come in with a fresh perspective and a fresh take and a fresh look on it. One of my favorite bands out there is Need to Breathe. And they don't profess to be a Christian band, but so many of their songs are so Christian based because they grew up in a Christian home with a dad that was a pastor, grew up in Christian schools, and they write a lot of songs that are Christian oriented, but a lot of songs have nothing to do with God. They're not anti-God, but they're just a song. And I find a little bit of relief in that sometimes. I'm like, man, that just felt good. It was just a good, clean song,
Right.
And I enjoy that.
Right. What about, so like when we go to like certain concerts or certain revivals or whatever, especially when I take youth, there's a time, and we can both agree on this, music will cause emotions, right?
Absolutely.
If you're going to workouts, you'll listen to a faster pace, this and that. Well, a lot of things, and this is brought to my attention here lately, and I've been kind of looking at this that I didn't really pay attention, but a lot of times when you get into this, and at the very end, after the preaching has went on, the music will go on, and it's kind of putting people, and what's being accused, I guess you would say, is putting them in a trance, kind of just repetitive over and over and over, which almost like they're saying it's tricking people to lead them to the altar. Now, what do you think about something that when they're saying it's just mind-numbing music like that?
No, I disagree. I disagree because I think that music, it sets the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
You go back all the way and you look at King David. Before he went out to war, what did he do? He sent the musicians out before him to set the atmosphere.
Right.
And I think that's what music does in the church today. I think when we lead worship prior to the pastor coming up, we set the atmosphere. We invite the presence of the Lord in. And it makes it an easy path for him to be able to share because, hey man, we have invited the presence of the Lord and we have worshiped him. You've probably heard me say this a lot on Sunday mornings, that there's only one place in the Bible that I can find that says that God is seeking something. And it says that he's seeking a worshiper. He's seeking us to worship him. And all through the Bible, David was a worship minister. He led people in worship. He played the harp. The Bible talks about with Saul. He had demonic spirits that came on him, and he would call David in to play to ease the spirits. That's what the music does, especially when it's spirit-filled, anointed music. I mean, if you're talking about somebody that has no relationship with Christ, and they're just up there just hammering down on, then yeah, it could be that way. But when it's entwined and wrapped in Christ and the Holy Spirit, then it's all about him. It's not about mind games. and what I'm trying to trick someone into. All I'm trying to do is lead you into the presence of the Lord, and you can make up your own mind in that.
I know, like, what was it, maybe 5 to 10 years ago, Christian music just exploded.
Yeah.
You know, we had a lot of Chris Tomlin, David Crowder, even the more rock for teenagers, it got real big or whatever, but it's kind of slowing down. What do you think the future is for Christian music? And, I mean, are we going to have another level? Are we going to level off? Or where do you think it's going from what you see?
I still think that it's relevant, and I still see that, you know, like I said, honestly, you know, yeah, we did have a big boom, especially Crowder and Tomlin. I mean, Crowder and Tomlin both great songwriters, man, but they've been doing it for a long time, man.
Right.
They were the Passion Movement back in the 90s out in Waco, Texas, you know, on the University of Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
But you still, man, I see folks right now that have come on scene like Lauren Daigle. And these people, man, they're crossing barriers. I mean, they're reaching secular people that, you know, you would have never thought would be listening to Christian music. So I feel positive about the future of music, Christian music. You know,
don't see it slowing down anymore?
I don't, because I believe as long as there's Christians, we need music.
Exactly.
And we want God anointed music, and we're going to keep purchasing it. You know, and I pray that our Christian walks in life, that we continue to increase and not decrease, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I don't see it backing off.
So give something, so there's somebody out there, give them advice. Now, when somebody gets saved, they get fired up, you know how it is, you're first saved, they're fired up, and then they're trying to find themselves. Well, they're obviously, everybody's not called to be the pastor or whatever, so the person that has talent, maybe in music or maybe somewhere else, what advice would you give that person? Or what if they have a talent and they just don't really know how to use it in the church? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, first and foremost, like I said, anyone that just receives the Lord or maybe is young in the Lord and they're eager to find a place, but you don't know where your place is, but maybe you do have a specific talent. My thing is this, I've always said it, you know, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know what my calling is. Well, first and foremost, put your hands to something. Find somewhere in the church to volunteer just to get yourself moving in the right direction. And God, I heard it said like this one time, and that you don't have to go tell everybody what you can do, because if you've got the goods and the Holy Spirit's moving through you, I heard it said like this, that the cream always rises to the top. So if you're someone that needs to move toward that stage in the future, it'll be known. You just start somewhere, put your hands to work. You know, I can remember, you know, I've been doing music for years, but I can remember churches I've been in 3 churches in my adult life, and I've cleaned bathrooms in 2 of the 3. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just being a servant and putting your hands to something, and through that's where you get your growth, and that's where God opens up your destiny for you, because you just can't just come in off the street or come in and just go right to the stage. You know, unless you're seasoned and, you know, and there's a need for you there, and you know someone, and they're like, oh yeah, we could use you, you know. It's a different story. But if you're someone just coming in, my advice would be talk to a leader in the church, get involved somewhere, and through that, it'll lead you to your destiny, no doubt. You just have to have a starting place.
I like that. All right, so now I'm going to put you on the hot seat.
All right.
Think you can handle it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, here we go. Star Wars or Star Trek?
Oh, Star Wars.
How come nobody says Star Trek? Is that's not a popular movie?
I'm not a beam me up Scotty guy.
I've never seen the first one. So
I don't know if I ever have either.
Have you?
I don't know if I've ever seen a Star Trek, but yeah, I like the Star Wars.
All right, boots or flip flops?
Boots.
You don't relax and
no,
just...
I will wear some flip flops, but I'm a boots kind of guy, man. Yeah.
All right, plugged in or unplugged?
Plugged in, man, all day.
Really?
Plugged in, yeah.
I like the unplugged we did last time, though.
I did, yeah, but you know, I like it loud.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
I do too, but every now and then, you know, when somebody does do that and you're not expecting it, it's really good.
It is. It has its place, you know, and we do it from time to time. But yeah, man, if I have the choice, yeah, I'm going plugged in all the time.
Gotcha. Schwarzenegger or Stallone?
Yeah, I gotta go with Rocky. I gotta go with.
Nobody takes Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I mean,
The Terminator.
Yeah, man, but the Rocky movies, you can't get any better than those.
I got you. Beatles or Led Zeppelin?
Zeppelin all day long.
Really?
Man. Yeah.
Ford or Chevy?
Ford.
Blu-ray or movie theater?
Yeah, Blu-ray. I enjoy my wife and I just at home on the couch.
You don't like the movie theater?
We might go to the movies once a year,
Yeah.
and that's roughly it, you know. But yeah, I'd lot rather be a Friday or Saturday night, just kick my feet up at the house and put a movie in.
All right. Mountains or beach?
Beach.
All day.
All day.
You don't like cold weather?
No, I don't mind cold weather, but I really love the beach. My wife and I, yeah, we enjoy the beach. That's flip flop. That's my flip flop weather right there now.
I'm starting to like you now.
Yeah.
Walmart or Whole Foods?
Well, I would definitely. I don't go to Whole Foods, but if I had the choice, I'd take Whole Foods all day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. Last but not least, now I want you to think about this
All
one
right.
because you got to have the right answer.
Okay.
David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar?
I know the answer to that. David Lee Roth.
Ah! All right, I'll let you slide on that one because I don't know anybody would say Sammy Hagar, but they do have good songs. Though.
No, man. Sammy's a classic, and he's still doing it today. They had some good albums after David Lee Roth, but David Lee Roth's such a showman. The early days of Van Halen, got to be the best days.
Hey, let me ask you this. I was going to end it, but I got another question because I've always wondered this. So, especially like when I was growing up, grunge was the new thing or whatever. When I was in high school, or whatever was the new thing, and during that time we had what was called the mosh pit and all that. People were kind of doing all that. Well, one time I did a study, and actually the early church, when they were singing and dancing and worshiping, they would bump into each other, whatever. And apparently that people said that they stole that from that. What do you think?
That's a new one. I've never heard of that.
I know. If you looked it up, the first century church, when they would worship, they would kind of mosh. I guess that was their deal or whatever. And it was like just when they were recreating it. I looked into this thing, and I've seen several videos. They would do this. So apparently, some of the people were getting mad saying that. But just on that note, or other things, do you think that Christian bands or secular bands steal from each other?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Think so?
Yeah, well, you take probably a majority of the Christian bands out there, they probably were not Christian to start with. You know what I'm saying? They probably were in secular bands to start, and that's not with every case, but a lot of them. But yeah, absolutely, they take things from each other. I mean, you see something in another band, you're like, I really like that, and you maybe just incorporate it into what you're doing somehow. So yeah, absolutely. I think that people take from each other. Yeah, I can't imagine though the early Roman Catholic Church in a mosh pit though.
Man, I'll have to show you some stuff. It's funny because what I was studying was like early the way pastors were preaching or whatever, and I was listening to early sermons that they had wrote, and they're like night and day from what we do now.
Yeah.
Of course, things change or whatever, so it is what it is. But when I somehow got involved with worship or whatever, and just how music came incorporated with that and the way that they would do things. So, but a lot of times, people, they would march around and do some other things.
And I can see that.
And so it was kind of the way they're portraying it is kind of a wild scenario.
That's interesting.
So, because I've always wondered how that started or whatever. Was it the rock scene, the punk scene? How did people want to bang into each other during a concert? But
that I don't know.
And then I found out it came from Christians. I was like, oh boy, how am I going to explain this one? But I enjoyed having you today. There's a lot of good information out there. People can learn and grow from that.
Yeah,
And
I
get to
appreciate
know
you having me
a
in
little
today.
better.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So as long as you said David Lee Roth, we're good to go.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.